Hi, and welcome to everyone who's joining us. Good afternoon, good morning, evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Eunice Baguma-Ball, and I'm a co-founder of Ishango.ai, which is we are the ones hosting the event today. We're going to have a really informal and hopefully meaningful discussion about democratizing data science. So we want to talk about making data science more inclusive, more impactful. And I'm really excited to have a great panel of panelists with me here today who are going to be talking about inclusion from different perspectives. But before I dive into introducing my panelists and a bit more about the topic for discussion today, I'm just going to take a few minutes to quickly introduce you to Ishango and who we are and what we do. So at Ishango, we are a bridge between Africa's top talent and global business. We're a social enterprise, and our goal is to bring highly skilled data science jobs to Africa. And we also want to provide a global platform to really showcase the wealth of talent that's available on the continent. I think for a lot of people, when you think of, the top data scientists or data science talent, maybe Africa may not be the first sort of place that comes to mind. And one of our goals is to change that. How we're doing this is we're running a fully funded residential program that's 3 months long. So we take fellows for 3 months and we match them with companies and give them the opportunity to work remotely on projects for these companies. And in so doing, they build their soft and technical skills, and it really sets them up with a strong foundation for being integrated into the global workplace. Can I get the next slide, please? We have partnered with the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences. This is Africa's leading postgraduate center for mathematical sciences. They have 5 centers across the continent, and we are particularly going to be based at their Center of Excellence in Kigali. So a lot of the master's students at AIMS are specifically focusing on mathematics, machine learning, and intelligence. And so we're really excited that we have access to some of the best talent when it comes to data science and machine learning in the region. Next slide, please. How our process works is that we find data science projects with international companies. So for our first cohort that is going to be kicking off in September, we have companies from Australia, from the US, from the UK, and they give us projects where they feel our fellows can add value, and where they also provide a learning opportunity for our fellows to build their skills. So we go through a very stringent process of selecting our fellows, and based on their skills and their passion and where they want to go in their career, we match them to a relevant project. And then we support them through a program to actually deliver this project with under supervision of our data scientists in residence. And lastly, they make a presentation to the companies on the work they've done. And really our goal is to showcase what they're able to do and set them up for future long-term employment opportunities. Next slide, please. So our program is 12 weeks long. Initially, like we mentioned, we have a preparation stage of making sure we match projects and companies very carefully. And then there's 2 weeks of a pre-residential where fellows are given a personalized and tailored learning plan for them to go through virtually online to make sure they've polished up on the skills that they need to effectively deliver their project. And then they spend 8 weeks at our AIMS Center in Kigali, actually working on delivering these projects for the companies that they've been matched to. And lastly, the last 2 weeks after they go back home is really about career support and helping them to leverage the opportunity for their further career growth. So that's it in a nutshell. Maybe I'll just skip. Can I get the next slide, but one? The next one. So there's 3 ways that you can get involved and support our program. One is if you're a company and have a project where you feel you're looking for fresh talent that can help you deliver some value around using your data better to further your business, we can help you find that talent. And if you also believe in our mission to actually develop diverse and more inclusive data science talent, that's also something that we would love to partner with you on. You can join us as a mentor to support one of our fellows on their project. And lastly, you can offer one of your team members, an experienced data scientist, the experience of a lifetime by being our data scientist in residence and getting the opportunity to spend 2 months in Kigali supporting our fellows. You know, lockdown fatigue is real. So for somebody who might be looking for a different experience, this is something that is also an opportunity. So that's Ishango in brief. And hopefully you'll see why for us, data science and inclusion and democratization is really a very core topic for us. But I would just like to now invite my panelists to the digital stage. And joining me today, I'm going to have Eko Duka, who is the co-founder of Zindi. And Eko will be telling us a little bit more about what Zindi actually does. But Eko is really going to be bringing this, the perspective to this data science inclusion from a geographic perspective. So looking at the work that they're doing to build the data science ecosystem in Africa and really put it on the global map. So welcome, Eko. I also have Sneha Sen, who is a data scientist based in London. And she's, really going to bring the perspective of being a woman, and women are still underrepresented generally in tech, but also very, particularly in data science. Just sharing about her journey, what that's been like, and kind of her vision or what she feels needs to be done to make the sector more welcoming for women. And last but not least, we have Shana Lee, who is the Director of Global Volunteers at DataKind. DataKind is a really cool and unique social enterprise that's about bringing data science capacity to organizations that are really doing good with data. And she's going to be bringing to the discussion, how do we make the benefits of data have more impact? How do we make the benefits of data reach more people and create greater social impact? So without further ado, I don't know if we can have the slides maybe minimized so we can have our speakers spotlighted. But I would like to now invite, maybe starting with you, Sneha, because you're top on my screen, just a quick 1-minute intro about yourself and why you're excited to be here today.
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Sneha. I've been working as a data scientist for around 2 years now. Before that, I studied linguistics at the University of Cambridge, which was great, but quite a unique pathway into data science. I'm really excited to be here. I really love the work that Ishango is doing, and I think it's really important that data science does become more inclusive as a field. I think there are several people who just have never even heard of it, but actually it's a really great and really interesting career, and it would be great for it to become more diverse as a sector. So really excited to be talking about that today.
Thank you so much. And maybe I'll move over to you, Eko.
Sure, thank you very much. So my name is Eko Duka, and I'm one of the co-founders of Zindi. My background is actually in oil field engineering, and I did some private equity. And loosely similar to, similar to Sneha, I write fiction. So I hope that it illustrates that that a career in data science can be really diverse.
Fantastic. Thank you. And last but not least, Shana, thank you so much. Is it really early where you are, by the way? Thank you very much for joining.
No problem at all. It is not early at all. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Ishango. I'm Shana Lee, the Director of Global Volunteers at DataKind. I am based in the US, Atlanta, Georgia, specifically. And so at DataKind, we're a global nonprofit that harnesses the power of data science and AI in service to humanity, doing this alongside a community of pro bono data scientists. My background actually comes from the area of working with community engagement, volunteers, and also the public health sector as well. So just thrilled to be here to be a part of the conversation around anything that involves inclusion of various communities.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I want to kick off with you, Eko. First of all, I wanted to ask you to sort of set the scene a little bit about Africa within the global data science discourse. Do you think the what's the representation as you see it? Where does Africa feature within the data science discourse, and specifically what is the work that Zindi is doing to try and facilitate, the growth of data science talent and the ecosystem within Africa?
Sure, thank you very much for that. And I think it's no surprise that Africa is underrepresented when it comes to data science, because there are many fields where Africa is underrepresented. For example, one could look at marketing spend. You could look at, for example, one could look at ventilators per capita. The numbers are always low for the African continent. And I remember when I was doing my MBA, there were no case studies from the African continent. So it's not surprising. So that's really why we started Zindi. And it's similar to you, Eunice, because you recognize that there is a lot of talent on the African continent that doesn't necessarily find the pathways to shine and to make a contribution. And it just so happens that my two co-founders are women. So we're very concerned as well about increasing the representation of women in tech and specifically data science. So what Zindi is really a community. So it's where data scientists come to learn, they come to compete, they come to collaborate, they come to solve problems. We like to say that we try and shorten the pathway from learning to earning within the data science realm. So we're still a very young organization. We'll be coming up to our third birthday in a few weeks. And I think we're close to 30,000 registered data scientists on the platform, the majority of whom come from the African continent. 25% of them are female. And we are very excited by the work that we're doing. So thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we do.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. I mean, a community of 30,000 data scientists solving problems just sounds really exciting. I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Are you able to share sort of any ideas of some of the challenges and some of the issues that this community is tackling using data science? Just, some of the things that are memorable to you, Echo.
I think some of the challenges that the data scientists face, and this is what hiring managers tell me, and it seems to be that there's so much hype in the data science field, and it's so easy to pull down libraries from the shelf, right? So unfortunately, you get quite a few data scientists who call themselves by that title, who don't necessarily have the curiosity or the tenacity, don't really understand what they're doing, don't really know when their models break down. And when in an interview, when they're asked, to do a whiteboard coding exercise, then they struggle. So so there seems to be a gap, and it's really concerning to me that to step away from the hype and to really be what the title suggests, and to be a scientist, someone who is curious, someone who asks questions, someone who is collaborative. That for me would be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and not to be too gendered, but when you were talking about collaborative, I was like, this sounds like something that needs a lot of women in it, right? So
yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
That's a nice segue to you, Sneha, just to provide. I mean, I would love to hear your journey into becoming a data scientist. I know you already touched on earlier that you started out in linguistics. Kind of what drove you to get into the data science space, and also what's this journey been like, particularly as a woman, and even more specifically as a woman of color, maybe. So just sharing any insights you have on your journey into data science, both positive and maybe some of the challenges.
I got into data science. I got into data science kind of like by coincidence. So I did an internship, which was in a field of linguistics called computational linguistics or natural language processing. So I managed to do one of those at my university, and then like from there, I had like some coding experience and some data analysis experience. And that was kind of just enough, like only just enough to kind of for me to then do a grad scheme and to then like become a proper data scientist. But it's actually I got actually very lucky, and I think it's quite unusual to get that lucky because I actually didn't know what a data scientist was when I kind of started this grad scheme, and then it turned out that that was actually the work I was doing. I got very lucky and I kind of stumbled into it. But like, I would love it that, I would love it if we could kind of do more so that people don't just stumble into it and they are actually like going for these jobs. Because I mean, I love data science as a field. I think it's so interesting because you get to kind of do all this analysis and like analytical thinking, like mathematical thinking, problem solving, thinking outside the box, all of that. But you also get to present and you get to think about problems in like a new and interesting way, and you get to like collaborate in ways that you don't always with other kind of computer science roles. It would be great if we could kind of both help people to kind of see what data science is, but also tell them about the benefits of it, and like maybe encourage people who like are mathematical, but also kind of have this side to them where they like want to express themselves more, present more, and think about these problems in different ways. So that would be great. I guess in terms of problems I faced, I have kind of luckily in my first job, there was another woman of color on my grad scheme, so I kind of didn't feel like I was the only one. But like often in the field, like it's like you'll join a team of data scientists and all of them will be, white males. And that does just happen. And I don't think that's kind of a problem with the companies I've worked at or anything. I think that's just what the field is like. I think no matter how hard you try to hire people, sometimes it's, there just aren't that many people out there. And I think that's because like it'll be great to be kind of doing more at a school and university level, and kind of helping people to get into those careers. Because until you have that stepping stone, a lot of companies aren't going to want to hire you if you have zero experience. But even if it's just like 2 or 3 months, like for example, like Ishango's fellowship or like the internship I did, that's like often just enough, like real world like experience of working with a company for then companies to kind of think you're competent and to want to hire you. So I think definitely working at a university level and even earlier at a school level, I'm kind of encouraging students to go for those data science courses. Especially if it's not something they would ever have considered before. It's really important.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And a recent experience, I was meeting with one of our fellows that we are kind of recruiting for our September program, and one of them is a lady who was actually one of our she did like one of the best in terms of the technical assessment and in terms of interviews. And it was just interesting that speaking to her, like she was like complete. She was like didn't really have confidence. Like she didn't really know how good she was. And by contrast, you spoke to some of the guys who are like on our reserve list, and they're like, really, really like super confident. Is that something that you see or have experienced yourself? That sense of, is this really for me or?
Yeah, I think in general, everybody struggles with imposter syndrome, like everywhere. But I think as a woman in tech, you struggle with it a lot. And I'm still quite early on in my career, so I still kind of feel like I don't really know anything, or that I'm not really qualified to kind of do most of the things I do. But it's just kind of one of those things where you kind of realize actually everyone feels that way, and it's okay to still be learning. And as long as you kind of have this potential and you're looking at problems in an interesting way, usually that's really interesting for companies. Like the fact that you want to work hard and that you want to learn, I think is just like a key thing. And when you can demonstrate that, then like it's kind of okay to not have all the answers at first. So I think, that was really helpful for me to kind of acknowledge and help me feel more confident. It was kind of okay to still be in like a learning place. And I think even people much further on in their careers kind of say that they're still learning and still doing interesting things. So it's one of those things where it's difficult to kind of get confidence. Like I think you just have to keep reminding yourself that like no one really has all the answers, and as long as you're like trying and like thinking about new things, you'll kind of very close.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess before we move to you, Shana, I just wanted to ask Echo and Shana if you had anything to share, like just about like the gender inclusion. I know Echo, you work with 2 female co-founders, and Shana, I saw doing quite a lot. So I don't know if you wanted to sort of chip in anything just to either add or supplement on the gender inclusion in data science.
There we go, Shana.
There we go. I was getting myself off mute. Sorry. So I really just wanted to validate what you just said about learning. I think one of the things that has been helpful being at DataKind and even in my own professional career is recognizing that people can show up as both learners and experts. And that level of expertise can be varied across the board. So I think that's something that's been helpful in terms of, situations that have come up around imposter syndrome is really reminding folks that everyone has an ability to learn and bring expertise to various situations.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think for us, one of the key things that the message we're always pushing as Ishango is just like the different perspectives that, for example, data sciences in Africa will have on data. You have companies that are either operating these markets, but don't necessarily have somebody local that is that close to some of the problems they're solving. So like you were saying, Shana, like everyone has that value to bring. And I really like that point that you made on that. Echo, did you have anything to add?
Well, I just wanted to add that, you don't have to be a grandmaster to add value. So one could maybe be able to put out a really cool visualization, which could really shed light on a problem, so something which you could do in a few hours. So yes, it's great to be, and I know it's something that we all aspire to, but you can really do a lot with what seems to be a little.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you as well, I'm just really curious because I think you mentioned earlier you have about 25% of the community on Zindi as women.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Have you noticed any insights? Maybe this is not analysis you've done, and feel free to say so, but any insights in terms of just any differences or like different differences in the way they engage with the community or the way they engage with problems, or even just from your working with women in the space, just in terms of shedding a light on what kind of environment we need to create to get like the best out of and one that's supportive for women to join the field.
Yeah, so we have, so it is analysis that we've done. So we're working to reverse engineer to get the outcomes that we want. So what we have noticed is that women generally tend to be drawn to the collaborations and the mentorship, and they are less drawn to the competitions per se. But then we recognize that, we don't want to go gung-ho on the competitions because you lose so many people and you lose so much potential insights in that way. So that's something that we'll be building towards in the coming months. Yeah,
that's a really good insight. Thank you so much for that. And Shana, I wanted to bring in the aspect of social impact. Maybe we could start by you sort of sharing a little bit about what DataKind is doing, because I think it's really an interesting model about bringing that data science capacity to the organizations that need it through volunteers. So maybe just shed a light on that, and then maybe also talk about how making data science reach more people and how data science is useful for solving social problems to reach more people.
Yeah, sure. So at DataKind, broadly, we do help those organizations apply their data in various ways, such as predictive analytics, machine learning algorithms, AI in a way that both increases impact and is also sensitive to any ethical considerations impact to the community. So interestingly, I dare say, there may be ethical considerations that may be able to be worked through in partnership with communities, but also, to the point made earlier, data science is so hot, also having the humility to say, this may not be the particular or best solution to bring to the table, and almost stepping back, which is not always easy, but that's something that we do take into consideration when working with our partner organizations. A couple of examples in which we have worked with social impact organizations. And in this case, we've actually worked with a university that really had the problem of wanting to figure out how to identify students that may be at risk of dropping out for a variety of reasons. They wanted to identify that in a proactive way to essentially offer support in a timely way to those students. So we were able to work with a university in that regard, which actually led to seeing an increase in their graduation rates after the first year of partnership. We've worked with water districts to be able to predict customer demand a little bit more accurately, so that way those organizations could redirect any avoided storage costs and bring that to more of infrastructure needs that also led to helping those communities. And one other example that I'll share is we had the privilege of being able to work in Haiti with a mobile sanitation service to ultimately improve their transportation efficiency for the company, and again, passing that benefit on to residents. And so one of the things you had mentioned as well is talking a little bit about how we work with our pro bono data scientists, our volunteers, and what's been exciting is we've been able since 2012, we've been around to work with a global network of 20,000 pro bono data scientists on a variety of over 300 projects. We do have a chapter-based community of which are located in Bangalore, San Francisco in the US, DC, and Singapore. With that said, we do hope to be able to partner with other communities as well. But what's been interesting is as a result of the pandemic, of course, we're actually seeing more global communities come together, certainly within their respective communities, but we also see globally folks want to come together and virtually work on projects.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And I think one of the things you really just showcased is what a diverse range of problems, can be solved through data science, giving an example of a university to transportation. And we see that as well in the projects that have been coming through to us from companies. And particularly in helping to understand, I think there's been a lot of sort of trying to solve things but blindly and not really knowing what that actual problem is and whether the solutions that we are implementing are working. Even the issue of climate change, there's a lot of data that can drive that. And I guess just to cement that point, I don't know, Echo, if you have any examples you can share just from some of the work that's being done, or the challenges that people on the Zindi platform are working on to solve using data science, just to give a bit, I guess, a few examples from the African context.
Well, there are quite a few. And I think that one of my favorite ones would be a competition we run. I think it was 2 years ago, and it was for the child care agency in Nairobi, where we helped them to predict the incoming volume of calls to the call center, so that they could staff the call center adequately. So while that might be a run-of-the-mill use case, it's not hard to imagine how that can really impact a child who may need help. So that's certainly one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. Do you have any examples that, sort of just spring to mind, Neha, in terms of something really impactful that you've seen, application of data science sort of helping to make a difference?
I don't right now. I'm about to start working at an education technology company. So I'm hoping I'll have some more examples to share.
Yeah.
When that starts. I don't have any right now, unfortunately.
No worries. I kind of put you on the spot a little bit there, so no worries about that. But yeah, I guess we will shortly be opening up to questions. Adrian, I don't know if we have any questions from our participants. If you have any question, please type it into the chat. and questions will appear. But as we wait for any questions to come in, I wanted to just ask maybe just final sort of wrap up or round up from my speakers, just in terms of what kind of your vision is for, you know, a world where data science is XYZ. You know, what is this? What are you working towards? What are you sort of your personal visions that you're working towards in terms of data science, in terms of making it inclusive, in terms of making it make a difference, in terms of making it create opportunities? Anyone who'd like to start?
I'll start. So a lot of things come to mind. One thing I didn't get a chance to touch on, but will acknowledge through this question that I think will be helpful is, you know, when we work and look at scaling data scientists, or science, I should say, we look at where there are opportunities of sector-wide issues or problems, because there is a recognition that one organization may not have a unique problem. It may be something that can be applied and benefit across the sector. So that is a lens that we often look at, as being able to help one organization, but seeing where that solution can help a sector overall. Building on top of that, I would say it's important to also think about partnerships, whether it's at the community level, various organizations like Zindi, Ishango, because one organization can't do it all, they can't solve it all. We all have finite resources, times. So really leveraging in on those partnerships and doing that in an authentic and mutually beneficial way. So not just reaching out to someone transactionally when you need something, but thinking about those in between relationship building touch points, celebrating one another's successes, lending a hand when invited to, things of that nature. And then finally, I would say this also goes back to that authentic community engagement. So when working on a project, design with communities, not for, being able to look at those touch points within the design stage to have that come into play. And then to my earlier point about showing up as learners and experts, certainly data science carries expertise with it, but there's a community's historical, cultural context that needs to be taken into consideration through that design phase. So recognizing that all that knowledge is valuable and work together toward a successful project or solution.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna. Anyone like to go next?
Should I go?
Yeah.
So I look forward to the day when no one talks about data scientists. So when it's a part of your job. So this leads me to talk a little bit about the domain expertise, which is so important. And I was playing around the other day with a data set which was to do with chest X-rays. And I was playing around with the deep learning model. And the biggest learning for me was that I knew absolutely nothing about radiology. And I just felt so inadequate, right? So I look forward to the day when, to the time when data science is just a part of people's jobs, because you can do, as I said before, you can add so much to your job already with a little bit of coding. You can really shine a light on the data that you work with on a daily basis. So that's what I look forward to.
Fantastic. Sneha, do you have anything?
Yes. So I think in terms of like diversity, I mean, it'd be great if we just didn't need to think about it anymore. That would be like kind of an ideal world in the future, and kind of where everyone feels like very welcomed and included within the field. I personally haven't felt super excluded, but also I think I'm very privileged in a lot of ways, and it would be great to kind of for more people to kind of feel that they're not out of place, and that the data science space is a space for them. So that would be great. And then also I think in terms of where places where data science can reach, I'm really passionate about education, and I think with education technology you can reach so many more people than you were able to before. And I think teachers are absolutely fantastic, and you absolutely need a teacher above all else. But like in order for teachers to kind of broaden their impact almost. So there to be some learning that's done through the technology, and then some learning that's done with the teacher, just so that people can progress more and can kind of learn like as much as they possibly can. Because I really do think education is kind of has the power to change everything. I would really like to see data science play more of a role in that.
Thank you so much. And while we still have you on the stage, I would say, Sneha, there was a question from the audience that introduced a different aspect to inclusion that we actually haven't touched on. So we're talking about impact of class on inclusion in the data science community. So I don't know if any of you have any insights just from the work that you're doing, from the data scientists that you're interfacing with in your work, where, is there anything we can talk about in terms of that other divide that might keep people out? And I don't know how in the African context that translates. I mean, of course, we do have obviously, a difference, but, particularly in like the UK and the US where, there's a lot of, those sort of class divides. Would anyone like to comment on that?
I can go first. I completely agree. I definitely think we should talk about class more. And I think actually in a professional context, the impact of class is discussed a lot less than at a school and university context. I found that at university, we talked a lot more about access. So like access to like really good universities and how impacted by class that was. Actually, I've very rarely heard it talked about in work context. I think we don't even talk about race issues really in work context, and like gender we talk about sometimes, but like class, I don't really hear about at all. So I think it would be great if I think a lot of companies will do their internal reporting about, how many people we interviewed who are women, how many people we interviewed who, weren't white. I think that's very common in the UK, but I actually think it's much more rare to also look at, for example, did your parents go to university, or like, what it was like growing up. And I think those questions are much less prevalent. And it would be great if, I think the first step there is to kind of start doing some more reporting on that and actually like seeing what's happening, because I think there's very little data that available at the moment. And I think when we can kind of see what's going on, we can then work to actually address it and to kind of focus more on like helping people who are from underprivileged backgrounds.
Yeah, and you've mentioned something I think is really important about when you said, or if you're looking at something like class, asking like, did your parents go to university? Because a lot of this is tied into also when you think about role models, like your aspirations. You're not going to aspire to something you've never been exposed to at all, right? Exactly. So I think that's a really sort of key thing that's just come up in there. Echo, did you have anything just to add on this?
I think it's hugely important. It's an important discussion, especially for data science, because it's not hard to imagine if you have a data scientist from a privileged background, he or she may never even think about maybe one day applying their skills to a problem like primary sanitation, because it doesn't register on their radar. So until we break down the barriers, we risk reserving the use cases to a first world type of problems. But on the flip side of that, the great thing about where we are now at this time is that there's so much information out there. There's almost too much. So there's almost no excuse not to be able to learn. Though I do recognize that for some people it's still hard, to get access to the information that one needs.
Yeah. And Shana, anything to add on that audience question?
Yeah, sure. I'll preface this by saying, with personal humility and even at DataKind, we certainly recognize that we have an opportunity to learn more and act more intentionally. But what we have learned and what's been shared, we really try to, gain that insight from the community that's being impacted. So as it relates to this question, I think it's so interesting. One of the things we've quickly learned as a global organization are things like diversity or class means a different thing depending on the context and the community that you're working with. So while in the US, we may not hear hear a lot about class, it may come up from a socioeconomic, like that's sort of the verbiage that mentioned. In other communities, it may come up explicitly in class. So one of the things we think about is even when we look at recruiting our pro bono data scientists, we challenge ourselves on things that we're looking for. So as an example, what's traditional is you ask for one's job title. Well, is that really what we're looking for? Is it more so about identifying and being clear on the skills or the different type of expertise that's needed and speaking specifically to that versus using a proxy of job title or something else? So we really try to even interrogate from our recruitment standpoint, what is it that we're really looking for? Where can we value different types of experience? We say professional experience, but in this age right now where people are facing employment challenges, we may need to look at understanding the different types of experience that people come to us with in the field of data science. So I think those are the things that we really try to challenge ourselves, and we also lean on hearing from the data science community to say, what about this, or have we thought about things in that way? So
amazing. Thank you so much. I don't know if there's been any other questions. How can we make a community aware of the benefit of data science and start to digitalize their data? For example, stop using paper, hard copy, etc. So this is, Echo, I see you smiling. How do we take data science to, so that the grassroots to the sort of the non-techies people, because they have data, it's just sitting in certain formats, or, for us, for me, when I coming from the African context, there's a lot of data that's just like oral, where a lot of information. So how can we make data science sort of reach the grassroots in that way? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or comments, or even seen any sort of cool projects or initiatives around this.
Yeah, the reason I was laughing was because I was thinking back to my time at the bank. I used to work for a large bank. And there's always somebody in the bank who has an Excel spreadsheet that they've been maintaining for a decade. And it's a humongous thing that they're the only person who knows how it works. And I think this speaks to what you were just speaking about now. How do you get the data science mindset to permeate through an organization? And I think it really comes from the top. And I think that for some organizations, they don't realize that at the core, the data scientist is an experimenter. So the data scientist will almost by definition will ask for money, do some stuff will fail, so he'll lose the money, right? And it's very hard for some organizations to countenance that. So until these large organizations get their heads around, and I think it's changing, that the data scientists that they are so in love with is really an experimenter. So with all the risks that come with experimentation, and to protect their data science teams from short-term outcomes, then I think it will still be difficult for large organizations to embrace this.
Yeah. Sneh, do you have any experiences to share or any thoughts on that?
I definitely think it's a really difficult problem. I'm just trying to think of kind of like the best ways. I guess for me, I think probably the best way is to kind of make sure you start thinking about these problems really early. So even kind of when you're in school, when you're learning about maths and numbers, and I think it's that's I think a good stage to kind of start thinking about different problems. Because I think definitely at school, students actually struggle with what's the point of all this? So I think also giving them a context for it, this actually could be really useful, or it could be really interesting, or you could, I don't know, power the world this way, or something really interesting and tangible. So I think having more real world context and problems in a school context, I think would be a really, really helpful way to
Yeah, and I think Yeah, I think one of the things you're also bringing up in what you've said is the issue of trust, right? So, I remember, in Uganda a few years ago, they introduced sort of biometric, IDs. And, there's a lot of questions around what are you going to do with my information, So I think, like you're saying, giving people the context, I think, like showcasing more around what are the benefits. Then if we know this, if we know how many people are calling, if we're able to collect and know what time you're calling, your name, then we can know, just using the example you shared earlier, Echo, that this is the capacity of staff we need to have to make sure that there is somebody when somebody calls. So I think, and also ties into some of the comments you made earlier, Echo, about demystifying data science and maybe even at some point doing away with the whole term completely, so that it's just a mindset, it's just a part of the way we think about problems and the way we solve our problems, as opposed to this sort of, very haloed community of people doing some magic with some numbers. Shan, I don't know if you have anything to sort of chip in on the conversation on this.
Again, really just speaking to the great point shared, putting it into context, it's ironic that, there's an opportunity to translate this information, but yet data science impacts our world almost on a daily basis. So definitely agree, and hearing from, public health background that I had, the opportunity to work through a trusted source, this could be an opportunity where you partner with, I don't know, the education sector, right? These are a team of professionals that constantly, work to translate, what may be complicated topics into a way that's applied. So maybe that's a sector partnership to think about, storytelling through those that are communication professionals. Again, going back to the community, storytelling may resonate, maybe it's film or the art. So I think there's also potential creativity in terms of how to create that linkage and educate.
Fantastic. There was another audience comment that flashed up, but I don't think I got a chance to. Oh yeah, it was just a comment. Andrew is saying data science is not just a science, it's an art and many other things. And I think that really speaks to, like you were saying, you can be anything. You can start from linguistics and end up being a data scientist. You can, it touches on literally every aspect of life. So yeah, I think unless there's any other audience comments or questions, I just wanted to maybe have a quick wrap up again from everyone, final words, and particularly from you, Sneha. I don't know if you could, sort of end on a note of, somebody out there who didn't think data science was a thing for them, just, kind of final words that person in terms of, getting into the data science field. And similarly, Echo, like you're really engaging, communities and getting more people into data science. So any final sort of message just generally around the inclusion and encouraging the fact that data science is a space for everybody and affects, like we've said in this conversation, affects all aspects of our lives. And so we need all people who are thinking about these problems and solving in all sorts of different ways. So just a quick wrap up from everyone, and then we'll say bye-bye. Sneha, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, I think if I was speaking to someone out there who's not really sure what they want to do, but kind of is interested in lots of things, I guess I'd say about data science, I definitely don't think that it's a field where you won't feel included, and where it's not for you, because it really is for you. And I think especially in the future, it's going to be much more inclusive as a field. And I also think, in a field like data science, we really value diversity, just because you want people to be thinking outside of the box and coming up with new ideas and new solutions. And actually, for me, like having a more unusual background does mean that I come at problems from a different angle and a different perspective, which is often really valuable. So yeah, definitely kind of bear in mind that actually your perspective is probably going to be really unique and really valued. And I think, I guess the world is your oyster. And the internet, you can learn so much on the internet, genuinely. There are loads of data science blogs out there, loads of tutorials. I would start by trying to download Anaconda or Jupyter Notebook, and just kind of looking at data science tutorials, get yourself some data, just practice data from anywhere, and just try doing interesting things with it. And if you like it, then big things ahead, I think. So yeah.
Cool. Echo, any final one?
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this kid I heard about, a Nigerian kid who writes code on his phone because he doesn't have electricity. And I think that is testament to this will to learn that we see among the African communities. And I would point to the people in the government who I see, they roll out these impressive sounding programs, but I actually worry whether they really understand what they're doing. So in order to enable that kid, who writes code on his phone, I would urge the decision makers in African governments to really educate themselves around what this 4IR, what this AI thing is, because then you'll be able to make much, much better decisions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Echo. And Shanna, any last final words?
Sure. Again, words well spoken by the panelists earlier today, but I would just say, if someone does have that interest, curiosity is the first step. Echo, you mentioned that. So, finding those that are inspiring to you, the mentorship, I think, is incredibly helpful. And doing that all through curiosity, whether it's, finding out about a resource or a class, and doing so. So yeah, just continuing that curiosity. And I think just maybe it's a bit philosophical, but as much as we would like life to work linear, I can't even say that word, linearly. That's what it was. As much as we want that to happen, sometimes we take different paths to get to where we want to be. So even to the point made, someone may have been in art and wanted to connect to data science, and that is okay. But just having the curiosity of knowing what those skills are involved and connecting through mentorship opportunities and connecting with those that you identified with that path.
Fantastic. And on that note, I just want to say thank you very much. Yeah, and I think there's a comment from Petra, which is hopefully one we've just addressed, actually. A recent graduate of biochem is looking to get into data science in the UK, but is not sure how. And so hopefully you've been listening to some of the advice that Sneha has shared, and Shanna and Echo, around different platforms that you can go and sort of start to learn. And just show that resilience. If all you have is a mobile phone, there's still a lot that you can learn. And hopefully we've showcased that the space is so diverse and there's so many problems out there that need your skills and your unique contribution. And that is and something encouraging. And thank you to everyone who's posting just some positive comments about the discussion. Thank you for joining us. It's great to know that there's been clearly an attentive audience out there listening to us. And again, to my panelists, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. And for all your support in various ways. You've all been supporting Ishango and Najani, Sneha as a mentor, Echo, and Shanna as an organizational partners. And we look forward to working together to continue to build and build a more inclusive data science ecosystem. So thank you again to everyone, and thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.